In today's video, I wanted to talk about some of my recent makeup favorites, the products that I've really been going to again and again lately. So if you'd like to see that, just keep on watching. So the first favorite I wanted to talk about before I get into all of my makeup favorites is actually a skincare device. This one right here. This is the cord. It has a nice long cord, which is fantastic. It's always frustrating when devices I find have short cords and it's hard to find a good place to actually use the device, but this one's really nice and long. So this is called the JOVS Blacken Photorejuvenation device. Just to be clear, this was sent to me in PR, but this video isn't sponsored. So I just wanted to talk about this. I've been using it for about 4 weeks now. I just wanted to talk through how I use it. There are kind of different modes that you can use, varying in intensity. So I wanted to show you how I use it and talk about what I feel like it's been doing for my skin. With this device and with most devices, I find that you see more and more results as time goes on with consistent use. So as I said, I've been using this for about 4 weeks now and 2 to 4 times per week. This device uses DPL, which is dynamic pulsed light, and it has 3 modes, and each mode is kind of meant to address a different issue or something that you're trying to work with on your skin. So the first mode is brighten mode, and that is the main mode for this device. I think it's the one that is suitable for really anyone who wants to try and use this. And this is, of course, used for brightening the skin and just an overall rejuvenated look to the skin. And that's what I've definitely used the most as well. I find it to be also the gentlest, so it's the least intense, which is great for my very sensitive skin, although I have moved up to the second mode as well, but I definitely started out with that brighten mode, and that's the one I use the most often. The next mode is redness mode, which is for reducing redness in your face. And then the third mode is whiten mode, which is for reducing light spots and acne marks that may be left over on your skin. I don't have any makeup on my face right now, so I just want to show you, this is what my skin is looking like after 4 weeks of using this, and as I said, primarily using the brighten mode. So when I use the brighten mode, I use it kind of all over my face. Keep it away from my eyes, of course, but all over this area here, even on my nose and on my forehead, I use brighten there. When I use the redness mode, I target it more to certain areas. So right in here is where I have typically had redness that I kind of want to get rid of. I have redness on my cheeks as well, but I'm not as concerned about getting rid of that because I find it adds a little bit of a natural flush, which I'm fine with. So I've targeted more of that area on both sides of my face with the redness mode. Then the third mode, the whiten mode, is one I use the least often. It's the most intense, and so that's the most targeted one for me. And I tend to use it just around this area where I have some lingering darkness from old acne. This is definitely the area of my face where I deal with that the most. And so I'll usually do a couple of targeted applications of the whiten mode in that area, but I keep that off the rest of my face for the most part. Now I've been showing myself demonstrating the device, but just to talk a little bit more in detail about the device, how it looks and how you use it. So this is the surface of the device that you touch to your skin. This area here actually is called the sapphire cooling surface area, and it actually does feel very cooling on the skin, which is especially nice when you're using that pulsed light because there is a heating effect from the pulsed light. So to have that cooling component is really nice and soothing. And then the actual pulsed light comes from the area that's directly surrounding that cooling area. So overall, I've really been enjoying this. I'm looking forward to continuing to use it and see what the longer term effects are. One thing that I haven't tried yet that I am quite interested in trying is working up to that whiten mode, specifically on this freckle right here. This is just a very large freckle, or it's probably a few freckles that have merged together on my face that has kind of always been there for as long as I can remember. But I don't love the look of that, so I am really interested in continuing to use this and trying that whiten mode specifically just on that spot to see if it can help with reducing the pigment in that specific area. So again, for me, I'm more about the brightening mode and the redness reduction. Those are really key factors for me, and whitening just for particular areas. So that's kind of the overview of this product. If you're interested, I will update you as time goes on as I continue using this. If you're interested in trying this out, they did give me a discount code and a link, so I will include those in the description box if you're interested in giving this one a try. One thing I did forget to mention, when you've finished using this with each session, they recommend applying a hydrating mask to really soothe and calm the skin. And the one that I've been loving so much is this one from Laneige. It's the Sika Sleeping Mask. It's to moisturize, soothe, and soften, and it definitely does all of those things. So this is another favorite of mine, and particularly in conjunction with this device, I think the two work really nicely together. Just apply a nice, generous layer of this mask. I started out with a sample of this, and then I liked it so much that I decided to buy the full size. Super moisturizing, really soothing, and I always feel like my skin looks really fresh and bright and healthy when I get up in the morning after having used these two products together the night before. So now let's get into the rest of the video and all of my recent makeup favorites. I wanted to start out with kind of non-makeup product, but it's sort of a hybrid. So this is the Merit Great Skin Serum, and I found this has been great through the winter, but it's also really serving me well in this kind of transitional season between winter and summer. So all through most of the winter months, I've actually been wearing Nivea cream, the very thick Nivea cream, day and night, because my skin is so dry, especially in the winter time. But lately, as it's been warming up just a little bit and the heating isn't on quite as much, I've been finding it's a little too heavy during the daytime. Makeup is not sitting as well on it as when my skin was a little bit drier, but I found that the Great Skin Serum has been an excellent substitute. So I've gone back to just my normal Belif moisturizer that I love, doing a layer of that, and then if I'm wearing makeup, I'll put on a layer of the Merit Great Skin Serum. And I find it just does such a great job of both hydrating my skin and keeping it hydrated through the day, which is a real challenge for me. But also it looks so beautiful under makeup. So I've worn it under my makeup today, and it allows me to wear some of those kind of drier foundations that aren't quite as moisturizing and dewy, but foundations that I still love and want to get more use out of, but would perhaps be a little bit too dry without something as beautiful and hydrating underneath. This applies in such a thin layer as well that it's really easy to blend makeup on top of it. And I don't find that my makeup moves around like it would on top of the Nivea cream at this point. It just melds really beautifully, and I always find it makes my skin look so plump and just really smooth and soft and healthy. Sticking with complexion, I'm going to talk about the foundation that I've been going to most lately, and it's the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation. Now, they don't really have a perfect shade for me in their foundation range, so I actually have Siberia, which is this one here, as well as Oslo. What I've done in the past is mix those two, so I would usually do 2 pumps of Siberia with 1 pump of Oslo, which is quite pink, and Siberia is quite yellow. But what I've been doing lately actually is just using Siberia. I find that 3 pumps of this foundation overall is really too much for me. So I'll usually just do 1 or 2 pumps of Siberia, and I've been mixing it with a little bit of this Huda concealer. So this is in the shade Whipped Cream. It's her Luminous Matte Concealer. So I'm going to swatch both of these products for you. This is a very light shade, which is great to mix with the Nars because the Nars is a little bit too deep for me. I could get away with it, but it's not ideal. So I do like to lighten it up a little bit. And I also find the Huda has quite a neutral tone, but it actually looks like it has a little touch of rosiness in it, which is nice to just slightly counteract that yellowness in Siberia. Overall, I do prefer a complexion that's leaning a little bit more into the yellow range. I find that works better for my skin tone and my undertone, but that's quite yellow, so just mixing in a little bit more lightness and a touch more rosiness kind of neutralizes it really nicely, and I end up with a color that's quite a perfect match for my skin tone. The Huda concealer I find to be a little bit drying on its own. It's a bit more matte than I would prefer to have for a complexion product, but when I mix it with the light reflecting, which is nice and plump and dewy, and a much more hydrating type of formula, they work together really nicely and balance out nicely on my skin. So that's been my go-to complexion situation lately. I find I can just use a really light layer of product and get a good amount of coverage that still looks really nice and natural and skin-like. When I want more coverage and want to go in with a concealer, I've been going for the Monika Blundercover. This is a holy grail product at this point. It's appeared in many favorites lists that I've done, and it just continues to grow on me. The shade is perfect. This is the shade 1. Works really nicely with that foundation mixture that I talked about. And again, it just gives a really nice skin-like finish. It's very easy to apply. I tend to usually apply it either with my fingers and just kind of pat it in where I need it, or I'll go in with my Real Technique setting brush to just kind of feather a little bit over if I need that extra coverage in any certain area. And it just wears really nicely. It never looks heavy or cakey. It's quite moisturizing on the skin, but still has a nice amount of coverage. And I've been finishing off with this old favorite. This is the Beckham Light Shifter Finishing Powder. This is not available anymore, but this is one of my all-time favorite powders. It's different from any other in that it's the most skin-like and kind of moisturizing looking powder that I have. It's a baked product, so it's very thin and lightweight, so you have to have the right type of brush to pick this up really well. I just find that this never ever gives any type of powdery look, but it still does a beautiful job of setting makeup and just keeping my skin looking fresh and healthy and moisturized. Never dries me out, never looks cakey or anything like that, and I think it's just a fantastic product. It's really a shame that it's not available anymore. When it comes to bronzer, I've been going for the Nars cream bronzer a lot lately. So this is the Laguna bronzing cream, and I have it in the shade Laguna 01. I've talked about this many times on my channel before as well. This is just a fantastic bronzer. I love that the shade is nice and light, but it still has enough to add some color and some warmth to the skin without going orangey. It just is a really natural looking color for me, and I love the formula of this. It's almost like a dry cream in a sense. It's not one of those super emollient feeling creams. Kind of like a cream to powder, but it still stays in that cream category in my opinion, but it just glides over the skin so beautifully. I find it works really nicely on top of an unset makeup, but it also glides beautifully if you've already set with a little bit of powder. And it's just so easy to use, so satisfying. I love the way it's presented, and it just makes me feel happy every time I use this. It does have a scent, so if you're very sensitive to fragrances, it has kind of a beachy, maybe slightly coconutty type of smell. So if you don't like that, you probably wouldn't like this. I don't find that it lingers too long, but it's definitely there. Just like with the bronzer, I've been finding myself going in with creams more for blushes and highlighters lately too. It's just the texture that's working for my skin especially well right now and gives the effect that I'm looking for these days with my makeup. And the ones I've been going to most lately are my Victoria Beckham Cheeky Posh cream blushes. These are one of my favorite cream blush formulas, as well as color ranges. I think the color range in these, and really with most of Victoria Beckham's products, is really special. She offers interesting colors, a lot of nice nuanced neutrals. My favorite one of her blushes is in this shade here, which is Playground. So it kind of looks like a terracotta, kind of brownish peachy shade, but this color for some reason just works so well on my skin tone. Every time I use it, I'm surprised by how good it looks on my skin. I'm always expecting it to kind of maybe pull a little bit too warm or too orangey or something, but it always gives this beautiful kind of brightening pinky brown effect on my skin, and it never turns orange or too brown or too dark or anything. It's just a really perfect shade for my skin tone. It's great on its own, but I do often like to pair it with this other shade, which is Knickers, which is a brighter, lighter, kind of apricot-y, peachy shade. which again, it just works really well on my skin tone. This is good on its own too, but it is a lighter shade, and often I want a little bit more depth with my blush, a little bit more kind of vibrancy. But this is a beautiful pairing to go with Playground because they're both in a similar family. They're a little bit warmer, a little bit peachy, but they've got a nice amount of pink in there as well. And adding this just on kind of the apples of my cheeks, I find works really nicely and just adds an extra kind of youthful look to the skin. So these are actually the blushes that I'm wearing today. I have applied them over a powder blush. I applied the RMS French Rosé blush first as kind of a base, but I really wanted more. I wanted more warmth. I wanted that kind of creamy, radiant texture from the Victoria Beckham. So I went in with these over top of that pinky blush. I find these very easy to work with. I like to usually use one of my Sonia G brushes. I'll put the name up. It's a smaller kind of kabuki, slightly flat topped brush, and I just find it super easy to dunk right into the product and then onto my cheeks. Let's talk about eyes and then we'll finish off with lips. For eyes, I've been enjoying the Lisa Eldridge Liquid Lurex eyeshadows so much, especially as bases for my eye looks. I find if I just do a wash of one of the Liquid Lurexes all over my lid and then go in with powder shadows as I normally would, it just creates this extra ethereal, really special looking eye look. It has the ability, because of that kind of shimmery base, to almost tone down any powder eyeshadows that I put on top, which for me is good because with my skin tone and my undertones, I think it's quite easy for me to go overboard, especially in real life. Things translate a little bit more forgivingly on camera if I'm using more makeup. It just actually works better for camera. But for real life, I find sometimes things can get way too smoky or way too intense very quickly. But if I start off with one of these shimmery Liquid Lurex bases, it kind of softens the look, but still allows the beautiful colors to shine through. And as I said, just lends this beautiful ethereal quality to any eye look that I put on top of them. The shades I've been using most lately are Daphne and Cressida. So Cressida is especially good for creating a softening ethereal base for an eye look because it is so light itself. So this color is certainly not going to add any depth to any look. What it's really going to do is more of that kind of textural light reflecting quality. I actually used this as a base for an eye look that I had in a recent video. It was one where I was wearing a blue eyeshadow look, and blue eyeshadow is really not my go-to, but it's something that I enjoy using and have fun playing around with. But with this as a base underneath those kind of deeper, darker and brighter blue colors, it just softened the look and made the whole thing, I thought, a lot more wearable and more flattering on me. And I love to use Daphne, of course, if I'm doing any green eyeshadow looks. This is a perfect base. I find generally the lighter colors work best for this type of purpose. So in addition to these, Bianca is a really good one because that's a nice light tone as well. Emily is pretty good. It's a little bit deeper, but it also does a beautiful job giving that kind of softening, sparkly effect. The eyeshadow palette that I've been finding myself going to most is this Gucci one, actually. So this is the Gorgeous Flora palette. This is what it looks like inside. And I've had a number of occasions lately where I've needed a quite kind of professional, subdued makeup look. So not too colorful, not too smoky or dramatic, but just something that looks really professional and polished. And I find that the mattes in this palette are excellent for that. I find these mattes to be very easy to work with, so they're not extremely pigmented, but they're not too softly pigmented either. But that kind of mid-level of pigmentation I find is perfect for me, where I have a little bit of the flexibility to build it up if I want to, but also to keep it soft on initial application if that's what I need. The colors of a lot of these mattes are very soft and neutral, just really easy to work with and look quite natural on the skin. So this is the palette that I've been going to most for those types of looks. And I've been finding if I want to add a little bit more excitement, the Linda Hallberg Shimmer Saga palette is perfect for that. I've also been pairing this with more colorful looks as well, but these colors I find to be so versatile. There's something for almost any type of look that I want to do in there. And the textures of these shimmers are spectacular. Always add something really special, and again, lend that ethereal quality to any eye look that you add these to. Lastly, into lips. Again, I'm talking about Lisa Eldridge. She makes my favorite lip products, and so it's no surprise that some of her products have been my favorites lately as well. So the Fawn Liner, probably my #1 favorite lip liner. I've been using this a lot lately. Another one that I've been going to lately is the Natasha Denona Ilana liner, and I find that that's great for cooler toned looks. But as we're moving into spring, I'm really preferring to lean into the warmer tones a little bit more. Just suit me better in this season. So Fawn is my better option for a slightly warmer, but still a little bit neutral and light lip liner color. The two lipsticks I've been going to most are both Luxuriously Lucent lipsticks. This is my #1 favorite lipstick formula of all time. I love that it's moisturizing, it's really easy to apply, it's a little bit sheerer but can be built up if you want it to. And the two shades I've been going for most are Kitten Mischief, my #1 all-time favorite holy grail perfect lipstick. It's this beautiful kind of peachy, pinky, browny nude. It just suits me better than any other lipstick I've ever used. I'm wearing it today actually over top of the Affair lip liner from Lisa Eldridge, which is similar to Fawn, but just a little bit deeper and a little bit warmer. And then the other shade that I've been going to most is Painterly, which is a little bit cooler, a little bit deeper, but I find it works really nicely if I'm leaning more into a cool toned or kind of cool neutral leaning look. And it's just a perfect option if I don't want something quite as bright and kind of peachy, pinky, warm as Kitten Mischief. Painterly is the best one for me to go to. At least that's what I've been finding lately. So those are all my recent favorites. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them. I'd love to hear what your recent makeup favorites have been. Let me know if you have any other questions or comments. I'd love to see those below as well. If you'd like to see more from me and you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I'd love for you to do so. Thanks again so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video.